Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, we have a special announcement from our district translator, Ms. Paula Balbuena.
Thank you, President López. Buenas noches. Habla Paula Balbuena. Si necesita servicios de interpretación al español, por favor llame al 1805-324-7680 e ingrese el código de acceso 699-30481 más la tecla numeral. Este es un número totalmente gratis. Nuevamente, llame al número de teléfono 1805-324-7680 e ingrese el código de acceso 699-30481 más la tecla numeral. También puede acceder a estas instrucciones en nuestro sitio web en www.mcs4kids.com, dirigiéndose a la parte inferior de la página y haciendo clic en Quick Links y haciendo clic en Board Agendas para ir a la agenda de esta noche. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the Modesto City Schools 1484th regular board meeting of November 7th. This meeting is now called to order. In closed session, board gave direction to legal counsel. I will conduct roll call, and I will be conducting roll call for all votes this evening as we have one of our board members via Teams. Student Board Rep Dara Patel,
Here.
Trustee Irvin, Trustee Maestas. Here. Trustee Marks,
Here.
Trustee Mejia,
Present.
Trustee West,
Here.
Vice President Brown,
I'm here.
President Lopez, present as well. Will everyone please stand for a moment of silence? Thank you very much. Good evening once again. This open session meeting of the Board of Trustees is being live streamed at the direction of the board. The live stream is available on the district website, and the recordings will be available for viewing the day after the board meeting. Modesto City Schools board meetings have been adjusted to follow health and safety precautions until further notice. MCS has provided an opportunity for the public to provide comment. It is outlined on our agenda. The public has been given an opportunity to call and leave a voicemail, send us a comment via email, or appear in person before the board. Any public comment received via email or voicemail following the posting of the board agenda and prior to noon the day of the board meeting will not be read out loud. They have been transcribed and printed copies will be given to each board member prior to the start of the board meeting and are also available to the public in the lobby. The voice and email comments will be attached to future board meetings for approval. This practice will continue until further notice. For members of the public that are interested in commenting in the future, we welcome your comments. And for those of you wishing to speak on an item that is not on the agenda this evening during our public comment portion of the meeting, you will need to fill out a request card that's located in the lobby. Usually I have some up here to show, but once you want to know that you're going to want to talk, you fill it out. If you need translations, please indicate on the card. Once you're done filling it out, please take it to the back to Ms. Chambers in the back, so she'll be waving for you guys. Ms. Chambers. And then please, as soon as you're done with your cards, please give them to her, because once we start the public comment section of our meeting, we will not be accepting any more cards. I also want to remind, if you wish to make a complaint against a specific district employee, you should follow the district's personnel complaint procedure. Copies of that procedure are available in the lobby, as are the agenda copies, which outline the procedure we will observe during the period for public comment. The right to address the board does not exempt the speaker for any potential liability for defamation. Thank you very much. And I am pleased and happy to welcome two students from Marshall Elementary that will lead us tonight in, yes, go Marshall. They will lead us in a flag salute tonight. So we have sixth grader Sina Team. Sixth grader Sina is a member of our student council. She is confident, humble, and always willing to share bright ideas to improve experience for students on campus. Sina truly cares about her peers and their future. She enjoys playing saxophone, soccer, and volleyball. Following college, Sina would like to become a lawyer. We also, please continue standing up. And we also have Christian Castillo. Christian is a confident and articulate scholar. He's a member of the student council. Christian is dedicated to his academic success and always tries his best. He is encouraging and motivates others to do better in school. Christian enjoys playing violin and sports. Following college, Christian will also like to become a lawyer. That's great. Students, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and everyone, please stand up.
Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. This moves us to our Superintendent Noguchi welcome and announcements. Dr. Noguchi, good evening.
Wonderful. Thank you, President Lopez. And good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out today. And for those of you that are tuning in from your couches at home, we appreciate your time as you come out. Modesto City Schools is a really diverse school district. We have over 20 different ethnicities as far as students that represent our entire community. If you think about that, 20 different ethnicities in our school district alone. That's a lot. Last month, we recognized Hispanic Heritage Month through a proclamation, and tonight, I asked the board in the consent agenda to acknowledge 2 additional ethnicities. Part of the reason for calling this out is really to acknowledge what our district is made of. Out of the kids that are out there, the kids that are in our schools and our play yards in the quads. So as we go through this year, I'm going to the extent that I can, really call out and acknowledge all the different ethnicities that we have and really what they bring to our school district and our community as a whole. I'm not going to read the entire proclamation, but I'm just going to pull out a few items. First off, I'd like to call out the Native American Heritage Month. So we'll be asking you to approve for the month of November, Native American Heritage Month. Native American heritage, history, and culture is one of our great nations, have been significantly influenced by the rich tapestry of American Indians and indigenous people. And the contributions of the American Indians have enhanced the freedom, prosperity, and greatness of America today and Modesto as a whole. Customs and traditions are respected and celebrated as part of a rich legacy throughout California and the United States. Modesto City Schools affirms its commitment to working towards a society that fosters a deeper understanding and appreciation for the diversity of culture and history of the federally recognized American Indian and Alaskan Native nations in our country. So that was a Cliff Note version. That was, just a few pieces of that. But we will ask that you approve this one proclamation. In addition to a second proclamation, and that is Seek Awareness and Appreciation Month. I do have to say in the agenda on F2, it's actually written incorrectly, the title. The title actually has I think it's Hispanic. It has Hispanic Heritage Month. So we have added on the dais for you the correct title, and we will correct that in our notes and also on the agenda. But the correct title should be Modesto City Schools Board of Education recognizing the month of November 2022 as a Sikh Awareness and Appreciation Month. And with that, I'm just going to read a few of the whereases, if you will. Sikhism is the 5th largest religion in the world, and today there are more than 23 million Sikhs worldwide and an estimated 250,000 American Sikhs. Approximately 40% of the nation's Sikh population lives in the state of California. It was an interesting fact that I learned today. Sikh Americans pursue diverse professions and walks of life, making rich contributions socially, culturally, and economically in the U.S. They serve in the armed forces, agriculture, trucking, medicine, fostering great respect among all the people of faith and service. Today, Modesto City Schools seeks to further the diversity of its community and afford all residents the opportunity to better understand, recognize, and appreciate the rich history and shared experiences of the Sikh Americans. So with that, you'll see that in the consent agenda in just a bit. The last thing I'd like to talk about is just the presentations that we have tonight. We do have a presentation on secondary outcomes, so that's grades 7 through 12. Recognize we did the elementary student outcomes for last year, this past October, with some promising results. Secondary struggled a bit more in CASP, this is sure, but we do have some strong gains in IB and AP, graduation and dropout. But the reason why I say this is we can't lose sight of where we've been. And last year, as you know, we had over 700,000 absences, and we had hundreds and hundreds of absences from teachers, and that is going to affect our outcomes. It's not an excuse, it's just we can't forget last year. Now, next year we won't have that, but recognize that as we tell our story about the student outcomes for last year, that we still were deep in the COVID conditions, and we're moving past that. So that I am encouraged by. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to President Lopez. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This will move us on to our Board of Education member report. So do I have any board member wishing to speak? Okay, I have a couple, and I'll get started with Trustee Maestas.
Thank you. Well, happy day after daylight saving. I hope people are awake. Always difficult on the little ones because I don't think that they really have a clock that goes backwards. So if you have little ones at home, I'm with you there. I had the opportunity of going to Enoch's high school's theater department performance of, I think it was called Then There Were None. It was like a murder mystery. Agatha Christie. So my son and I went to see the performance, and it was a lot of fun. The students did a great job. We didn't know who it was. We had our thoughts, and then we were fooled at the end. So that was pretty fun, pretty cool. And I just want to remind everybody that we have election day tomorrow. So vote if you haven't already, and that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Trustee Marks.
I just have three things. Visited the Shackelford ribbon cutting with many of us, got to participate in that. It was really fun to be out at the campus and see all the students in one location in that new facility. And after having been there for the groundbreaking last year in the freezing cold, it was nice to be inside and celebrate with the little guys and even the little tiny ones. The 3 and 4-year-olds were in there with us, so that was really cool too. So I just was happy for the school and excited to see the changes that are happening at Shackelford. And then a few of us visited the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency grant, where they granted us enough to cover 8 electric buses of our fleet of 30 that we have purchased. So that was really exciting, and that was an outside event, and it turned out to be nicer than we expected. It could have rained that morning, so that was this last week. And then I attended the CalSSD, the California Large Suburban District meeting, and I was there with our superintendent and Associate Superintendent Tim, and so Mr. Zerley. And it was an interesting meeting. We had a report from the LAO And Edgar Cabral gave us a report about the new funding that we're receiving and our revenues this year, even though Prop 98 was up like the most we've ever received for our school districts around California. The predictions, the revenues were down lower than they anticipated, so they gave us a couple of numbers. It was $8 billion below the projected, and they were going to have to reduce the Prop 98 by $3 billion. So that was disappointing news, but I know that that happens. And we had some great information from the CCEE. Oh man, I can't remember these acronyms, what they stand for, but that was a new committee that was formed a few years ago. So they're going to do a new math framework in January for accelerated learning and professional learning. So that was exciting to hear. And Dr. Noguchi gave some great reports too to the group, or you gave some great information on mental health and concerns that we have in our district. So it was a good meeting all around, and I just love hearing what other districts around the state are facing, and then how we're responding. And each district is different, and so it's kind of nice to know and get a report from the LAO's office early on so we can start planning our budgets for next year.
Thank you very much. Trustee Irvin?
Yes, few things. I got to attend an awesome day at UC Berkeley with 41 of our students. Got to help coordinate this event where we were invited to the UC Berkeley versus Oregon football game, and at the time Oregon was ranked number 9, so we all know the outcome of that. And so we traveled to UC Berkeley. Prior to the game, we had we went on a tour of UC Berkeley, and then we were hosted by the UC Berkeley Law School Black Alumni Association at their tailgate. And so we had free food and everything and music, and students got to meet attorneys and things like that at the tailgate. And we went from the tailgate to the football game, which it started off pretty competitive until after halftime, and then Oregon kind of ran it up on them. So a very great event. Matter of fact, our teacher of the year was there with us, Eli, to thank you from that. Ronaldo Rucker over at Davis, the other teacher, and Deshaun Benton from Mark Twain, the other teacher. He'll help chaperone that trip as well. So we had a really, really good time. Would you say so, Eli? We had a good time, didn't we? And so, yeah, we're looking forward to more of those. Also was at the EPA event with the rest of my colleagues there, those electric buses, reducing our carbon footprint in the valley here. And also at the, I went to the Shackelford ribbon cutting. I remember those days at Shackelford going down the street when I was running after school, holding my nose because of the tallow plant over there when I would go on campus. We've come a long way over there at Shackelford. The students don't have to play tetherball or dodgeball or any other thing while holding their noses. They can walk and breathe as normal. So it was really good to see the metamorphosis of Shackelford over the years. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee West?
Thank you. Like several of us, I attended the ribbon cutting for the cafeteria at Shackelford and the EPA event. And a couple of things that stood out for me. One, at the Shackelford event, besides those little 3- and 4-year-olds that Cindy mentioned being so well behaved through all of the long speeches, I was very impressed with that. But throughout the school, there were character traits that were displayed. And I really felt really focusing on having great character traits. So I was really pleased to see that. And then for the EPA event, one of the women, I can't remember her name, but was a new mother, she said. And it was so heartfelt, her appreciation for the electric school buses, not only for our own students, but for our entire community throughout, even beyond our own community, the benefits that are going to affect them, and for all the kids that are coming up who are going to have cleaner air to breathe. And so I was really grateful for her comments that kind of put everything into perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice President Brown?
so many great positive things happening in the district recently. And like has been said, the event at Shackelford was just over the top. The way that we were greeted as we came in with all the students lining the walkways and just cheering us as we arrived, it made us feel like we were celebrities, and really the celebrities were the kids, because what we've been able to offer them with this great facility at that campus is nothing short of amazing. And the event with the EPA, once again, a great celebration of the great things and the energy that is happening within the district to allow us to consume less energy. I just can't thank the district enough and those who are responsible for making sure that we are out there and receiving opportunities to better serve our students. 8 more buses fully paid for is just phenomenal. So a couple of other things that I want to mention. I got the opportunity to represent another board that I serve on, as I was able to visit several of the Boys and Girls Club sites throughout the city. And the last stop happened to be Lakewood. And I was amazed, even though the kids were all there in their pajamas, it was pajama day, they were all smiles. And that tells me that our programs are really reaching the kids in the way that they're supposed to. They're happy. They've been at school all day. They're still at school till almost 6 o'clock at night, and they're still happy to be there. So something magical is happening with the things that we're doing, with the support that we're able to continue to provide after school at every campus in the district now. And then I am part of the Stanislaus County School Boards Association. A couple of things that I'd like to mention that association has coming up. We have our annual school board members dinner that will be, I believe, in April, and I don't have the exact date because it's kind of been fluctuating, but I'll share that. Our district has been asked to have one of our schools that hasn't been represented recently provide the flowers for that occasion. So we'll reach out to one of our floral departments so that the students have a chance to be recognized there. And also, I would challenge my fellow board members at the CSBA CEB conference down in San Diego to pay close attention to different tracks and speakers, because we're looking for an appropriate speaker to come and speak at the dinner. So keep me informed. If you hear something that you feel we should bring back to our community of local school boards, that would be a great opportunity. And last but not least, I want to reach out to those people within the district that have supported the Measure L Bond Committee. The support that we have received, the community, and especially MTA, and the support that they gave with the community walk was amazing. The numbers that we were able to draw, to share information that day, greatly appreciated. And great thanks to those who have put in a lot of time and effort and energy on behalf of the students in support of Measure L. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Mejia?
Yeah, I'll be brief. I did attend the Shackelford, and I'm not going to repeat all the stuff that was wonderful. I mean, but I did want to say that growth. There was a speaker that was a mom, and also started as a volunteer, went to school, is now employed by the Medicine School. So that was a really awesome. And she was also I was a Sunday school teacher. So it was awesome story all the way around to hear that, and the importance of volunteering, the importance of starting and growing our own. So that was pretty amazing to me. It really felt good to see someone that just as a parent, volunteer and everything, and loved by the community. So that was pretty awesome. And I was able to see some teachers that I worked there when I was helping with California Mini Corps, helping migrant students there many, many years ago in 2002 and coached there. So that was a pretty kind of almost coming back home. It was pretty awesome. And this, the second day I attended the EPA event, and one of the biggest things, I'm not good with numbers, but they were talking about tons of pollution and the greatest thing for the valley. I couldn't remember, but just in my mind, it put a vivid picture of what we're doing over the long haul for the entire valley. One particular quote that said, like, what we're doing in Modesto is going to help people in Bakersfield. And so to me, that's the impact that hopefully a lot of the decisions we're making for us. So I just want to say it was great all around. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yes, I want to be brief as well. I think everything had been mentioned from our fellow board members. I was able to attend also the Shackelford ribbon cutting. It was a very special event. I was honored to be the one speaking on behalf of all you guys. So it was really good to be out there to see all the kids being in one room, all the kids and staff being in one room from, the first time I think Trustee Brown or Vice President Brown we walked into Shackelford cafeteria back in 2018, and just that so tiny, and then just seeing that there was a sheet 8 by 11 just outlining 7 different lunch schedules, right? And so starting at 10 a.m. or going all the way to 1 p.m. And so to think about, if you happen to be the older students, you have to wait until about closer to 1 because of the limitations, right? And now being able to say we can feed all of you if we wanted to at the same time, right? That's impactful. So it was really, really special event to be a part of. I'll echo what my fellow trustee board member Maestas mentioned. If you haven't done so already, please go out and vote tomorrow. It's the best way we can speak our minds, the best way we can to really show our voice, right, and what we represent and what we stand for. So regardless of what's important to you, make it count this election. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll be moving on to our recognitions, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Brittany Jackson.
Okay, thank you so much, President Lopez. So good evening to our board trustees, Superintendent Dr. Noguchi, and our MCS families and community here tonight. Thank you again for attending tonight's board meeting. This is the great time where we get to acknowledge and show appreciation for the hard work, dedication, and innovation by our outstanding scholars, teachers, and staff. Before we get started, we ask that our presenters who come up tonight to show appreciation for their nominees come to the front and face the audience so all of our wonderful guests can see you all here tonight, and we will have Anthony pass the mic to you when that time comes. So to get started, tonight we have a special character education presentation. Tonight we are celebrating 6th grade student Tayshawn Turner for the Character Trait Initiative. Classroom teacher Jody Miller nominated Tayshawn, and Principal Adele Alvarez is here tonight with Ms. Miller to read the nomination. Thank you and good evening.
Yes, come join me. And I have to say, can't wait to see you guys at El Vista when we get our construction too. We've had a planning phase meeting today, so I can't wait to see that in action. All right, welcome everybody. I want to recognize Mrs. Miller first, who's our 6th grade teacher, who nominated Tayshawn Turner for the Character Trait Award for Initiative. And the great thing about Tayshawn is the 2 years that I was at El Vista, he was an MBA student, came back to El Vista, and has been doing an amazing job. So I will read what Mrs. Miller had to share. Tayshawn is a phenomenal student with extremely profound character traits. He demonstrates numerous MCS character traits every day. Tayshawn is loyal to his school and his classmates. He shows respect to all and is very responsible. Tayshawn has shown great initiative and compassion for other students in the class. He takes time to ask other students if they need help with concepts he has mastered, and also helps students with math and many other subjects. He even uses his free time to help others. Tayshawn is truly deserving of this recognition. Congratulations.
Thank you. And so at this time, we're going to have Dr. Noguchi join, and also Trustee Marks and Trustee Mejia come down for a picture over by our banner. Congratulations again, Tayshawn. And next up, we are going to celebrate our MCS hero. And it's also befitting because this particular hero is of Native American heritage, and it's Native American Heritage Month. So this is also really special. Tonight, we're recognizing Gilbert Blue Feather Rosas Jr., Director 2, Sustainability and Adaptation, as our MCS hero. And tonight, to read the nomination is Associate Superintendent of Business Services, Tim Zierli.
Good evening. I'm honored to nominate Gilbert Rosas as a MCS hero. Gilbert Rosas is our Director 2 of Sustainability and Adaptation. He serves on the World Resource Institute's Electric School Bus Advisory Council, and his passion is seeking environmental justice for disadvantaged communities through electric school bus transition and empowering students through sustainability initiatives and demonstrating green career choices. Gilbert has gained national attention with 2 recent school district electric school bus deployments. In March, Gilbert joined Modesto City Schools during the transition of our existing diesel bus fleet, assisting in the conversion of half of our fleet and resulting in the largest single order of electric buses for AZ bus sales in the nation. His tireless networking with other agencies has resulted in Modesto City Schools being recognized as a leader in sustainability. He is recognized as an MCS hero for his dedication and passion in leading Modesto City Schools toward a sustainable future and his many other contributions since joining our district. He is truly deserving of this recognition.
And at this time, we will have Dr. Noguchi joined by Trustee Irvin and Vice President Brown come down for a photo with Gilbert and Tim. Thank you. Congratulations. Another round of applause for Gilbert. And finally, tonight, we have a very special recognition as we celebrate our 2021 Stanislaus County Office of Education Teacher of the Year Award. And before I bring up Eli Bynum, who received this really prestigious award, I'll share a little bit more about the program. So the Teacher of the Year program is designed to pay special tribute to outstanding TK teachers in Stanislaus County to recognize that teachers face many challenges every day in their classrooms and in the community, and to promote public recognition and respect for the teaching profession. This program celebrates the exceptional work of positive role models who inspire all students to reach their highest academic potential and work to maximize their social and emotional development. So here to say a few words about the Teacher of the Year at Downey High School is Principal David Sanchez. Why don't you both join us?
So just to say this ahead of time, which is off script, and I apologize, we actually talked about dancing our way up here because that's the type of person Eli is. Like, he just likes to have fun each and every day, but now I'm going to get back on script so I don't say anything. Anyways, it's my pleasure to speak to you about Eli Bynum and why he is more than deserving to be recognized as the Stanislaus County Teacher of the Year. For those of you who are unaware, each year Stanislaus County collaborates with Modesto Rotary and school districts from around the county to form a panel of educators to identify amazing teachers and select one from each grade span who epitomizes the best of those teachers. This panel works hard to identify teachers who inspire all students to reach their highest academic potential and to work to maximize their social and emotional development. Consistently support high expectations for learning and responsible behavior at school and within the community. Teachers who approach teaching with creativity, enthusiasm, and a true appreciation for individual differences among all students. And teachers who cultivate lifelong interests in learning among all students. When considering these qualifications, it is clear that Mr. Bynum needed to be recognized as the Stanislaus County Teacher of the Year. He would say otherwise. He was actually really mad at me for a while for recommending him for this, but no, in all reality, he is one of the most kind, compassionate, enthusiastic, and passionate teachers I've been blessed to work with. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Bynum, or congratulating him for the Stanislaus County Teacher of the Year.
And at this time, we'll have Dr. Noguchi, President Lopez, and Vice President Brown join Principal Sanchez and Eli for a photo.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Did it switch? Thank you, and that concludes our recognitions for tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. This moves us to A8, approval of consent agenda. Is there any comments regarding consent agenda items?
Needs to be changed to what I had said earlier, and that is Sikh Awareness and Appreciation Month.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Any comments from our public? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda with the modifications outlined already?
I move approval.
Moved by Trustee Marks and seconded by Trustee Mejia. Sorry, there's a lot of M's in this board. And I will now take roll call. Student Rep Patel?
Aye.
Trustee Irvin?
Aye.
Trustee Maestas?
Aye.
Trustee Marks?
Aye.
Trustee Mejia?
Aye.
Trustee West?
Aye.
Vice President Brown?
Aye.
And President Lopez, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Now, do I hear a motion to approve the order of discussion action items for this evening? Moved by Trustee Mejia, seconded by Trustee Irvin. I will now conduct roll call. Student Board Rep Patel. Trustee Irvin.
Aye.
Trustee Maestas.
Aye.
Trustee Marks.
Aye.
Trustee Mejia.
Aye.
Trustee West.
Aye.
Vice President Brown.
Aye.
President Lopez, aye as well. Motion carries unanimously. This takes us to the period for public presentation. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting and showing your interest in our schools. I have one card this evening. Each speaker will have 3 minutes for this evening. And our first and our only speaker this evening is Debbie Martinez. Welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome, community. My name is Debbie Martinez. Good evening, Madam Superintendent, members of the Cabinet, President Lopez, members of the Chamber. Let me jump on the bandwagon as well for elections tomorrow. I am too running for Stanislaus County Office of Education, District 2. Whoa, imagine if I get that seat. Anyhow, I'm here today because I want to talk about a couple of different things. The first and important thing would be the buses. We have 30 new buses, but yet we have no electricity to charge them. But yet we have Downey, that I'm getting ready to talk to Tim on Thursday under our school safety. I am now getting calls from former employees, current employees that are talking about how bad the safety is over there at Downey High School. It is not to be of surprise, but past practice over at Downey is still conducting as current. We got rid of the old regime. I just heard you say, Dr. Noguchi, that Sanchez should get an award. For why? The current employees have so much to say. I mean, our portal, he doesn't even know where the portal begins and where it ends, but yet we have a lot of video on parents that are fighting our students at Downey Park. I see a lot of money in this room. I see a lot of money that's spent. Measure Al, let's support the local schools. You guys want to spend a lot of taxpayers' money, but where is it really going? Where is the safety for our children? We have adults that are now fighting our children at a park. This is crazy. Sanchez is our number one reason why Downey is not safe, and I will continue to say it in public, in a courtroom, wherever I need to close the gap for the safety of our children, because I now have an employee that just left not even a week ago who's willing to come forward as well. This is bad. Downey is bad. And yet you guys are on the Modesto Bee promoting Downey as if it's a good school. It's not. So let's just keep it real. We have adults that are now fighting our children. Where is everybody at? Mr. Lopez, I would love for you to come to our meeting on Thursday when I sit down with community and talk to Tim. Enough is enough. And then translation, we're going to acknowledge the Sheik. Are they 51%? Because over 10 years ago, I took this district to Office of Civil Rights. We now have a translator, but where is it in writing? Where are our paperwork in writing? And if we're now going to start servicing the Sheik community, we need to start servicing them their language as well. Well, my time's up. Thank you. Don't forget, vote for Debbie Barrera Martinez tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, even though we cannot engage in discussion and take formal action on items not on the agenda, we thank you for following the protocols and addressing the board and for taking your time to share your views with us this evening. And so this takes us to our B1, which is student representative to the board report. And I hear we have a special report this evening.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you all had a great day. This past month, I've been working on a few special projects. For one, I was able to attend the Graduation Requirements Committee meeting, and there we were just progressing and making observations about programs that we think would benefit students at schools, and just thinking of ways we could relay this information to our peers, and for me, the Inter-High Council and the Student Advisory Council, just for better feedback and just to bounce ideas back and forth about certain programs or things that they would like to be added in their school sites. I also attended a Health and Wellness Committee meeting where we discussed ways to support student and teacher mental health, COVID-19 safety precautions, and overall county and state number the rate of infection. And we also discussed the rise of fentanyl usage in Stanislaus County, particularly with teens in Modesto City Schools and the dangers with that. The past 2 weeks, I've worked with Ms. Fallon Ferris, Ms. Alexandra Hancock, and Mr. Armando Arizo to film videos that have been sent out and are in the process of being sent out to Modesto City School students across Schoology. One of these videos is about student surveys and ways students can get their voice out there by filling out these surveys and acknowledging the issues that they feel are most important to them. So here's an example of one of the videos. Hello, Modesto City School students. I want to start by introducing myself. My name is Dara Patel, and I am the student board representative for our school district. My role is to be a liaison between all students and the School Board of Education. I am here to represent student interest and promote student voice and concerns around policy, procedures, issues, questions, concerns, and successes. I am thrilled to announce that this year we will be administering 2 to 3 surveys via Schoology. These surveys will be around topics like dress code, graduation requirements, zero period and summer school class options, ethnic studies, and more. I hope each of you take the time to have your voice heard and within each of these surveys because your voice matters. To conclude, I am Dara Patel, your student board representative. Remember to be on the lookout for surveys coming your way via Schoology. We all have to look out for each other. I'm excited for an amazing year full of student voice truly being at the forefront. Nothing about us without us. Thank you all and have an amazing week.
That's great.
And we also worked on a video regarding the dangers of fentanyl. Just as a student, being able to speak with my peers about using these opioids, it's important to look out for each other and be aware of the dangers that may come across to us. So we also made another video regarding fentanyl usage that will be coming out this Tuesday. And here's an example. Hello, Modesto City School students. I want to start by introducing myself. My name is Dara Patel, and I am the student board representative for our school district. Deaths and overdoses from fake pills with fentanyl are surging across the country and right here in our own school district. In the past 18 months, students around the country have lost their lives to fentanyl-related poisonings. Teenagers just like us who had hopes and dreams and plans for the future. These teenagers had families who loved them and are still coming to grips with their losses. Teens are purchasing what they think are OxyContin, Percocet, Xanax pills, or marijuana via social media. But drug dealers are making these fake pills with a cheaper, stronger, and more deadly synthetic drug called fentanyl to increase their profits. Fentanyl is up to 50 times more potent than heroin and 100 times more potent than morphine, both of which are incredibly addictive drugs. The amount of fentanyl it takes to overdose and die is equivalent to 2 grains of sand. Fentanyl is odorless, tasteless, and colorless. Teens never know what they're getting. One pill can kill them. Just recently, the Drug Enforcement Administration warns of brightly colored fentanyl used to target young Americans. This rainbow fentanyl comes in a variety of bright colors, shapes, and sizes. So please, if you or someone you know comes across this issue, remember the rule. See something, say something, so that we can better protect each other. To conclude, I am Dara Patel, your student board representative. I'm excited for an amazing year full of student voice truly being at the forefront. Nothing about us without us. Thank you all and have an amazing week. So I hope with these videos, informing students about student surveys and just informing them about the dangers of fentanyl, that I can, even if I help one person, one student, I hope that truly makes a difference. And we're making these videos for elementary school students as well, which will be sent out in a couple of weeks after they're edited. So I'm excited to see the outcome of this and just to be able to gain more student voice and perspective on issues that really matter to us. So that concludes my board report.
Thank you very much. Student Rep Patel, great work. It was awesome to see that. We'll be moving on to B2, which is the California School Employee Association report. And do I have a representative from the president? She's not here? Okay, so seeing now, we'll be moving on to B3. And B3 is approval of authorization to award requests for proposal RFP 22-4767, student activity transportation to additional provider via Trailways and any other provider submitting a proposal that meets the district school pupil activity bus criteria. And this is Mr. Zerly.
Thank you, President Lopez. Good evening, trustees. At the request of the board, we're bringing this item back for approval. As noted in the description, the 5 vendors approved by the board back in May of '22 currently do not have the capacity to provide 10 buses needed to transport Downey and Enoch High School students to Disneyland for their senior night trip. And so we're asking for this approval. in order to secure the number of buses to transport to Disneyland. If you recall, last year, there weren't enough charter buses to fulfill the senior trip to Disneyland, and our drivers admirably filled in at the last minute to provide transportation. But normally, traditionally, this is fundraised by the school sites, by the students, and funded. The charter trips are funded through student body and fundraising activities. So we're asking for approval to add via Trailways to the approved charter list.
Thank you very much. Do I have any comments from public? And I will say that once we come back from public, we will not go back. So if anyone wishing to speak on the item has now. So Debbie?
I have a question. I mean, if last year we used our own employees, why can't we use them again? I mean, that's taking away out of the extra that they can use. I mean, the economy this year is really bad, so I'm proposing that we do not, and we give it back to our employees. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I know I was here last month speaking about this same issue. I just want to say thank you for giving us an opportunity to.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry. Yes. My name is Dahlia Estrada. I'm from transportation. I am a school bus driver. Like Mr. Zerling was saying, last year us drivers did pick up the Disneyland trips. Unfortunately, the schools did suffer from that, but we got it done. Moving forward to this school year, we still question and have concerns regarding adding more vendors to the district for transporting field trips. That have been rightfully ours in the past. We do have history of us doing field trips with no problems. I know there has been concerns on the management's part, saying that home to school and school to home is suffering due to the lack of drivers, attendance, or whatnot, and can't do the field trips. But there have been years where we've had 17 drivers out almost the whole year, and we have still managed to get it all done. And really, the reality of the main issue at hand is the routing from home to school. Because of the lack of knowledge coming from parts of management, not knowing how to route, that has become the main issue. And from that, it's just trickling down. Thank you.
Any other members from the public?
Well, talking about transportation, the new Senate bill that we want the children to sleep longer, and then we heard that the excuse is that we don't have enough bus drivers, and so children are still going to school early and wasting their time in the morning. So I don't know what's going on with the transportation department, but somebody needs to get fired. Something needs to be done. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other member from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for any questions or comments. I have Trustee Maestas.
Thanks. I have some questions on clarity, if you will. This approval, if approved, this is for really the senior trip, not for just normal field trips throughout the year, right?
Yes, we're asking for approval in order for us to, the way our purchasing works is we can't issue a purchase order to a vendor that's not on the approved list. So in order to issue a purchase order for the 10 buses to secure them, we have to have this action for this particular senior trip to Disneyland.
And so this approval is for this vendor to be on the approval list so that students can choose this vendor if they choose through using their own money, not the district's money for their trip.
Correct. The intent of this, the student activities transportation, are dollars that are fundraised at the school site level, provided for a specific transportation purpose. But as we've seen over the last year, the charter companies are not back to full service levels. And so it's based on who's available at that point in time.
If this isn't approved, do we run the risk of students not being able to go on their trip?
I'm sorry?
If this isn't approved, do we run the risk of students having difficulty going on the trip?
As noted, last year, we provided some of the transportation, not all. We provided some of the transportation when the charter companies canceled the last week or the last 2 weeks of the trip. It makes it more difficult because we're not securing the buses now, but anything's possible.
And do the students have the option to go with the district's transportation for Disneyland trip if they so choose to do that?
This is not something we typically or have provided. I know in my 6 years here, we haven't done it until last year when we had to. We were forced to do it. I may defer to my educational colleague to identify at the site level what the needs are, the requests.
So I think what I heard your question was, do students have a choice in which transportation they take?
Yes.
The school identifies typically a charter service to get all seniors to the trip. Everybody goes via the same mode of transportation. So,
But if the school could choose to use the district's transportation rather than a charter, could they do that? Could the students and the school, the ASB, or whoever, the senior class, whoever puts that together, can they choose to do that?
having been in a situation where students, some were on a charter and some were on a school bus, I think 99 out of 100 students would choose to take the charter bus. It's just more comfortable than a school bus.
Okay, but that is their choice because they're paying for it.
That is correct. It is identified as one of the expenses when they're either fundraising or paying for the trip.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Irvin?
Yes, I wanted to get some clarification on that because I know riding a school bus from Modesto to Anaheim could be a little challenging with comfortability, 55 miles an hour all the way there over the Grapevine. So I would say that, you know, the charter buses would seem to be the preferred method as well, because I heard complaints from students last year that made the trip of the, you know, I think they had to sleep on the bus, someone was saying, or they were sleeping on the bus there and back. But just want to make sure that the students, feel like, that's what they want to do is if they, choose to take a charter that trip that far away, that to me it seems like, riding buses long ways for that trip, even though we have the drivers, it's just the type of bus used to be able to get them there seems to be the issue that has come up. Because I know last year there were some complaints about just the ride, not the bus drivers or anything like that. It was just the ride on the school bus to get there and back.
Thanks. Any other questions from board members? I did want to bring up a point right here on the title itself. It says, and provide any other submitting, and any other provider submitting a proposal that meets district's pupil activity bus criteria. So that would mean that for the rest of the year, we wouldn't have this in consent to approve any other company that might be added to our list. Correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Based on that wording.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion that we remove that part, so that even if there is another one that comes up, that it will come through consent for us to look at. That, okay. Does anyone second that motion to, second? Okay. Anyone, do I have to take roll call on that motion? Okay. So we're gonna take a motion to remove or strike out any other provider submitting proposal that meets the district schools pupil activity buses, which means that if there, in the future, there's another company that needs to be added to the list, it would come through as an individual request. Correct? So does student rep get a vote on this? Yeah, student rep Patel?
Aye.
Trustee Irvin?
Aye.
Trustee Maestas?
Aye.
Trustee Marks?
Aye.
Trustee Mejia?
Aye.
Trustee West?
Aye.
Vice President Brown?
Aye.
President Lopez, aye. So now, the new proposed authorization is just for the proposal 22-4767, student activity transportation to add additional provider via Trailways. And that's it, okay? All right, now, any questions or any comments regarding that? No, do I hear a motion to approve B3 with the modifications already stated?
I move to approve B3 with the modifications that you stated.
Okay, moved by Trustee Marks, seconded by Trustee Mejia. I'll conduct roll call again. Student Board Rep Dara Patel.
Aye.
Trustee Irvin.
Aye.
Trustee Maestas.
Aye.
Trustee Marks.
Aye.
Trustee Mejia.
Aye.
Trustee West.
Aye.
Vice President Brown.
Aye.
President Lopez, aye as well. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, and this takes us to item B4, which is report on 7-12 student achievement data, 2021, 2022, and this is Mr. Calderon.
All righty. So good evening, Board President Lopez, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Noguchi, Cabinet, and members of the public. My name is Ernesto Calderon. I'm the Senior Director of Curriculum Instruction and Professional Development for Modesto City Schools. And tonight we'll be reporting on the 7-12 student achievement data from last school year. With me tonight are my colleagues that are we're going to be introducing them as they approach the podium tonight. So again, our purpose tonight is to report on the 7-12 student achievement data from last year. This includes student attendance, CASP results for English Language Arts and Mathematics, AP results, IB results, graduation rate results, and dropout rate results. Before we begin our presentation, I just want to bring you back to last year. And it was a year like no other. It was an unprecedented year. And especially when it comes to absences. Scholars were being sent home or being kept home for having COVID or COVID-like symptoms. We also took contact tracing very seriously, which means if you were in the vicinity of close contact with a scholar who had COVID, then you were also sent home. And this not only affected or impacted our scholars, our students, but it also impacted our staff. So I want to make sure that we keep that in mind as we go through this process. Tonight's report directly aligns to district goal number 1, which is increasing academic achievement and ensuring equitable access to enable all scholars or students to attain college and career readiness. Again, as we go through this presentation, we need to recognize where we've been. During the 2021-2022 school year, there were 440,424 absences reported in the 7th to 12th grade, which is a 220% increase from the 2018-2019 school year, where the total absences were 199,620 absences for that at pre-pandemic year. Again, these absences are not only negatively impacted our student attendance, but also our teachers and our staff as well. They were negatively impacted as well. And although we are proud of the work that we're doing, we also recognize that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. We will begin tonight by reporting on the 2021-2022 ELA or English Language Arts and Math CASP data. Before we present this data, I'd like to remind you that in 2019-2020, CASP assessment was canceled due to the school shutting down in March of 2020. And during the 2020-2021 school years, we had a choice to assess students using CASP or any local assessment that Modesto City Schools deemed appropriate, and we decided to continue with the CASP assessment. And in the 2021-2022 school years, all students took the CASP and MCS as we wanted to collect the best data available, and we wanted to have a baseline for the coming years. Tonight, the charts that you will see are the percent change from the 2020-2021 of students who met or exceeded standards on the CASP. As we shared back in September at the board meeting, we did see successes in elementary school. However, we did not see the same successes in grades 7 through 12. In math, we saw a percent change decrease of 0.1% in grade 7 and 8, and a decrease of 7.5% in grade 11 from the previous year. In ELA, we saw a percent change decrease of 3.7% in grade 7 and 8, and a decrease of 5.5% in grade 11 from the previous school year. In this chart, the schools are ranked from highest percent change to the lowest. The schools identified in green showed increases, while the schools identified in red showed decreases. As you can see, Roosevelt showed a slight increase from previous year, while Mark Twain, Henshaw, and La Loma showed decreases. It is also important to note that in 2020-2021, we implemented diagnostic assessments, which had not been implemented in English Language Arts in the past, and we implemented IAB benchmarks. In 2021-2022, we also started to implement data dives after each diagnostic and benchmark assessment, a practice that we've expanded on this school year. So in grade 7 and 8, our English learners and reclassified fluent English for proficient, or RFEP students, showed an increase from the previous year. Our white, Hispanic, and African American student groups, however, showed a decrease from the previous years. It is important to note that we started PSYOP cohorts in grade 7th and 8th during the 2021-2022 school year, and Ms. Mota will discuss this further detail during her component of the presentation. Moving on to high schools, only 11th grade students take the CASP assessment, so that's why we're only reporting on 11th grade. Again, in this chart, the schools are ranked from highest percent change to lowest. The schools identified in green again showed increases, while the schools identified in red showed decreases. As you can see, schools demonstrated increases in the CASP scores were Elliott, Bayer, and Davis, while schools that showed decreases were Gregory, Enoch, Downey, Johansson, and Modesto High School. So just like in junior highs, it is also important to note that we also implemented diagnostic assessments when our students returned back from the pandemic, and implemented IAB assessments as well. And we did start implementing data dives after our diagnostic and benchmarks about 3 or 4 times a year. Breaking down this data by student groups, our African American students showed a considerable increase on the CASP scores from the previous year, while our English learners, RFEP students, students with disabilities, white and Hispanic students showed a decrease. The increases that we did see in 11th grade could be as a result of the equity work that's been happening across our district, along with the addition of more contemporary fiction in our classrooms. At the end of this presentation, we will have 2 full slides for next steps. This slide right here is specific to English Language Arts. So based on this data, it is evident that we need to increase the supports in English Language Arts for our students in 7th through 12th grade. We will continue to offer job-embedded professional support to high-quality professional development to support our junior highs and our high school teachers. Although we will have a more targeted approach during ELA data dives, where we focus on high-leverage standards that were not met during the benchmark reviews. Additionally, we have begun our structured lesson studies at our junior highs and high schools in an effort to focus our research on research-based effective lesson design and teaching strategies. This model will also allow ELA teachers to co-teach a lesson and then reflect on the lesson with their colleagues. And we actually just finished our first round today. We will also provide targeted supports to those sites that did not demonstrate growth on the CASP by prioritizing site support for coaching and professional development, along with specific and targeted supports through the graduation rate intervention team process, which you will hear more about at the next presentation. And now to report on math is Dr. Sarah Olson, Senior Director, CIPD.
Evening. So just as a reminder of what Mr. Calderon said, we recognize that this data is not where we would like it to be. We also had the option to administer the CASP-borne internal measure for 2021 and 21-22. We chose to do a CASP assessment so that we would have that comparable data, which is what we're going to share with you, or what I'm going to share with you right now for our math data. Some of our surrounding districts did not choose the option of an internal assessment, which does not give us a way to compare our data to other districts in the area, which is why you don't see that reflected in this presentation. Last year, we were still suffering from the effects of the pandemic with our student attendance rates, which was shared at the beginning of this presentation. We're hopeful that with the shift to a more normal school year this year and the supports we're implementing, our scores will improve. For math achievement, we're going to start with our junior high scores. As you can see on this chart, 2 of our 4 schools showed growth on the CASP from the previous year. In this chart, the schools are ranked from the highest percentage change to the lowest. The schools identified in green, which are Mark Twain and Hanshaw, had growth of 2.6% and 1.7% respectively over previous year, while the schools identified in red showed decreases over the previous year in the students who met or exceeded standards. Looking at our student groups at the junior high level, while our overall district growth decreased, we did have some gains in our student groups. So the majority of our student groups showed positive change in growth over the previous year. These groups include our English learners, our reclassified fluent English proficient students, our students with disabilities, African American students, and our Hispanic students, while our white students student group had a slight decrease in the percentage of students who met or exceeded standards. Looking at our high school data, you can see Bayer High School showed growth on the CASP from the previous year, while Elliott showed no change in the percentage of students who met or exceeded the standards. Again, in this chart, our schools are ranked in order from the highest percentage change to the lowest. And you can see that we had the one site, which was Bayer, that had a positive growth, and the rest of our sites had decreases. Our high school student group that showed growth in the area of mathematics on the CASP in percent change from the previous year was our African American student group with the growth of 1.1%. All of our other student groups showed decreases from the previous year. Our English learners, reclassified fluent English proficient, students with disabilities, Hispanic and white student groups. Based on this data, we do have some areas of celebration, but we also recognize that there is still a lot of room for growth. We continue to focus on supporting teachers with job-embedded instructional coaching support in the classroom and providing high-quality professional development within and outside of the school day. Our secondary instructional math coaches are working with teams and individual teachers to provide coaching opportunities. Excuse me. To date, our secondary math coaches have already logged 775 coaching events focused on a variety of areas, including lesson design and lesson demonstrations, curriculum support, assessment support, and data analysis. We're also providing targeted support to those sites that did not demonstrate growth on the CASP by prioritizing site support with instructional coaching and professional development. In addition to coaching support and professional development in and out of the classroom, we have teams of math ambassadors with representatives from junior high and high school sites that meet quarterly. The work of these teams is facilitated by our instructional math coaches, and areas of focus include analyzing standards, creating benchmarks, conducting data dives, and discussing current areas of needs for the sites. With our district goal of every student passing Algebra 1, we are also piloting an Algebra 1 co-teaching model at Johansen High School, in which 2 fully credentialed math teachers co-teach 5 sections of students who would have been placed in a pre-algebra course this year. Preliminary data from this cohort is positive, with 48.5% of students in this cohort meeting or exceeding standards on the benchmark 1. Co-teaching cohort students outperformed students in the traditional Algebra 1 courses at Johansen High School by 12.4%, and Algebra 1 students in Modesto City Schools by 17.7%. So this is some promising data for our Algebra 1 students. I would now like to introduce Maricela Mota, Director 2 of English Learner Services, to go over the AP data for 8th grade students.
Shorter than everyone else. Okay, so I'm going to present the 2021-2022 advanced placement results for 8th grade only. Dr. Olson will be reviewing the high school results. So just a reminder, we do have 8th grade students that take the AP Spanish Language and Culture Assessment. And those students are part of the Dual Language Academy, which is located at Henshaw Middle School. Just a little bit of background in the program. The dual language students take 2 courses in both 7th and 8th grade, completely in Spanish, and that's a Spanish course and also the social science course. So at the end of 8th grade, as they exit junior high, this is our 2nd year that our 8th grade students have taken the AP Spanish Language and Culture exam. So here are our results for the only 2 years we've taken it. As a reminder, the 3, 4s, and 5 is a passing score in the year 2020-2021. It was the first time our students took the assessment. The students were never officially in a class. We just gave them the option to take the assessment. But last year was the first time we had a course in our 7th and 8th grade Spanish course for these students. And as you can see here, the results increased by about 25% for these students. So we had 10 students that had a 3 and 1 student that had a 4, and then 3 students that had a 5. All the students that scored a 4 or 5 moved to the AP Spanish Language, Literature exam in high school. So they're already on the last place for high school. The students that scored a 3, we actually gave the families an option of what they wanted to do, whether they wanted to go to the AP Spanish Literature course or to repeat the course to try to get a higher exam. So it was an option of the parents and the students. Some students decided AP Spanish Language and others decided AP Spanish Culture. So a little bit of good news there for our 8th grade students because it's new and it's growing. Our goal for this year is 65% and then eventually hopefully 85% and eventually 100% is our goal. And next will be the AP high school results. Back with Dr. Nelson.
So this data looks a bit better than what I just presented on the CASP. We have lots and lots of green, so we're very, very excited about that. Looking at the AP results for our high school students, you can see that there was some significant growth in the 1-year change in exam passing rate. The table represents the subject areas with the highest number of exams given and the percent change in the exam pass rates. English literature and composition, Spanish literature and Spanish literature and culture, and calculus AB had the greatest change in exam pass rates. The overall increase in percentage of total exams passed for the district from the previous year was 9.4%. We also had positive growth in the change in overall exam pass rate for student groups from the previous year. African American students showed a significant increase in the overall exam pass rate with a 19% increase, with our Hispanic and white students also showing growth. It's important to note that the students participated in the 2021 AP Test Administration from home and took online exams. And there was notable growth in exam pass rates overall in 2022 with our students participating in exam administration back at their school sites. Moving on to our International Baccalaureate results, we have results for, again, the subject areas with the highest numbers of exams given and the percent change in the exam pass rates. Mathematics, analysis, and approaches showed a 0.1% growth, and Spanish B showed no change in their exam passing rate from the previous year. Our psychology, English A, literature, and history of the Americas exam pass rates showed decreases from the previous year, and unfortunately, our overall percentage of total exams passed for the IB exams was a decrease as well. Looking at our student groups for the International Baccalaureate exams, we see the change in overall exam pass rate for student groups from the previous year. African American and white students showed an increase in the overall exam pass rate, while Hispanic students showed decreases in their overall exam pass rates. Based on this data, we'll continue to support teachers by providing job-embedded instructional coaching support in the classroom and high-quality professional development within and outside of the school day to support our teachers and students in these programs. I would now like to invite Ernesto Calderon back to report on graduation and dropout rates.
Alrighty, so now I'd like to report on the graduation rates results for the 21-22 school year. I am very excited to announce that our graduation rate results from the 21-22 school year, along with the percent change from previous years. As a district, Modesto City Schools had a percent change increase of 3.78% from the previous year. As you can see from the chart, none of our high schools had a decrease in graduation rate from the previous year. Enoch's High School maintained a graduation rate of 97.3%, while other high schools showed an increase in graduation rate from the prior year. The three high schools that had the greatest or highest graduation percent change from previous years were Davis with an increase of 3.19%, Downey with an increase of 5.13%, and Elliott with an increase of 24.4%. Each of our student groups also showed an increase in graduation rate from the previous year, including our students with disability, with a notable 7% increase, and our African American student group with a 12.5% increase from the prior year. Along with increases in our graduation rates, I'm also excited to announce positive news regarding our dropout rates. Modesto City Schools saw a decrease of 1.9% and a percent change from a previous year as it relates to dropouts, which is, in this case, is a good thing. We want to see a decrease in dropout rates. Bayer, Downey, Elliott, Johansson, and Modesto High School all showed a decrease in student dropout rates, which are noted in the chart in green. And noticeable growth was seen from Modesto High School with the decrease of students dropping out by 4% and Elliott by 5.1%. While Davis, Enoch, and Gregory showed an increase in student dropout rates. I'm also excited to report that each of our student groups showed a decrease in dropout rates, especially our African American student group with a decrease of 5.9%. Now to wrap up this presentation, I'll hand it back over to Ms. Marisela Mota.
So you're probably wondering, what are our next steps after seeing all the data? So one of our next steps is to focus on the instructional core. Our instructional core is these four things: board adopted curriculum, ensuring everyone is using our curriculum to ensure equity for all students, especially when they're moving from site to site. Also supporting all learners, and what this means is ensuring our learners have access through differentiation, strategies, and scaffolds. We also want to ensure that our students, that we focus on engaging students using language and literacy through reading, writing, listening, and speaking every day, in particular for our English learner students, but for all students. Also, our focus will be for our PLCs, professional learning communities, for our sites. We also have other areas of focus. So one of them is our high-quality professional development. We want to ensure that our professional development is research-based. That's why one of the components of our professional development that started in the 2020-2021 school year was the Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol that started as volunteer. Teachers that wanted to do it, we took them on and we did our pilot as volunteers. For this school year, we actually are not volunteers, so in our junior highs, our social science, and ALD teachers are going through the PSYOP PD to ensure that our English learners have access. And there's 8 components to PSYOP, like lesson delivery, strategies, component of our how they pair students together, etc. We're also focused on our ELA data dives, as Mr. Calderon mentioned. They just finished one up. For these ELA data dives, not only do they focus on English language arts, but they also focus on our English learner students and our special education students, ensuring that both those student groups have access as well. We also are going to focus on our math ambassadors and algebra team teaching. As you're hearing there, I probably said a lot of junior high, and you're probably thinking, what about high school? We're working on our plan for high school. We knew this year with a time change, we needed to focus and have everything ready in our junior highs, and next year our focus is for high school. We also are focusing on job-embedded coaching support, our one-on-one coaching support. So if a teacher wants one-on-one for English learner strategies or for special education inclusion, that's what they focus on. We also are focused on our direct support for administrators in the implementation of great meetings, and I won't discuss too much about it because Dr. Contreras will be speaking more about the great meetings, but in those meetings, we do focus on student groups, the data, especially on English learners and students with disabilities as well. To give you a little bit more information, the last slide will be for Ms. Panu, and she's gonna talk a little bit about support for students.
Thank you. As Maricela said, we are continuing to focus on the instructional core and supporting all learners in Modesto City Schools. We are excited that we have some RISE pilots going on, not only at the elementary sites, but we are focusing on our junior high and high school sites. We have pilots currently at Johansson, Enox, and Hanshaw, specifically focusing on math currently in those schools. We have our winter and spring intersession coming up, and both will continue to offer credit recovery and academic improvement to support students at high schools during summer, winter, spring, along with opportunities for targeted academic support before and after school. Our summer school, as I said, will be offered at the high schools and junior highs. And our social emotional supports will continue. Our new student support administrators at all of our 7th through 12th grade high schools will support this, in addition to our lower ratios with our counselors. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you very much for that report. I'll start out with community and public. Anyone out there wishing to speak on this report? Welcome once again.
Debbie Martinez with We Are La Raza Parents Union, Advocate for Justice, California Legal Rule Associations, the Latino Community Roundtable. I also sit as chairperson for California School Choice. This is very alarming. We've been in the OutCap for 10 years now. You guys been getting supplementary English learner funding. We service here at Modesto City Schools at least 66% Hispanics. That's 2/3. This is very alarming because in 10 years, where has our money gone? If we're piloting, that's what I've been hearing. I want to know if equity works. Gentleman, Mr. Calderon just said, does that mean you guys now have adopted the equitable grading? Is that where this comes from? This equity works? Because I am going to go on record and I'm going to speak to federal courts that we need to be audited once again, because the last 10 years, this data clearly shows that you guys have been neglecting our English population. Thank you.
Very much. Any other Okay, anyone? Aaron?
Hi, I'm Aaron Anguiano, president of the Latino Community Roundtable, and I have 3 kids in school too. I look at the big gap in achievement between Hispanics and whites, and it's really big, 12, 14, 16%. And then when I see my son in high school and all the problems he's gone through and in junior high, and then I see a pattern. And I think the grading policy is not adequate. I think there's teachers that want to grade on behavior. I'm sorry. I guess it's so discouraging sometimes. There's teachers that think that they should be grading our children on behavior, and they give them bad grades when the child really knows the subject. And I think that teachers need to mind their own business. They need to stop picking at children, and I don't know what the heck is going on, but they think they're gonna educate our children like if they're parents. They need to teach them. They need to teach them math, English, writing, reading, and that's it. Some people even have come to me and say, well, why are they teaching them if it's me, I, it, they, them? They need to mind their own business. What is the business of the district? To teach the children math, English, science, and grade them. I even have a teacher that grades my son 50% penalty for turning in late work. 1 day late. And they said, okay, now I'm gonna make it 1 week. 50% penalty. Is that encouraging? What kind of teacher is that? It's really upsetting. And I talked to a couple of you board members about it. Have you done anything? No, you don't do anything. Nobody does anything. They look at you, they stare at you, and when I turn my back, I think you probably will flip me. And I'm sorry to say that, but that's the way I feel. You have 66% students that are Latinos, and you're not doing a good job. You're not. I'm sorry to say that. And you need to listen, because you have all this grading that these teachers are doing any way they want, because you don't give them the tools. You need to give them the tools. You need to grade like this. The education code tells you how to do it, and you need to do your job. Look at your grading policies and make those teachers teach, not to be conditioning children about American culture and how you got to behave and all that. They start picking on the child, and they really, whenever they have bad grades, they have unsatisfactory behavior. When they have a good grade, outstanding behavior. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other member from the public wishing to speak on this item tonight? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for any questions or comments. So we have Trustee Irvin.
Yes, my comment is on the ELA achievement. First, at the school sites, have we been able to pinpoint we had the changes at Elliott, Bayer, and Davis, and not the other schools? Is there some way to kind of pinpoint where we did well, or in those areas, in order for those schools to achieve what they, achieve the growth that they achieve versus the other schools?
Yeah, so we are looking at questions that are scored or that are assessed often. It's in our junior highs, for example, right now that we are focusing on a central idea and theme, which is scored highly during our CAST assessment. So we're looking for questions that come up often in the CAPS assessment that are highly assessed, but are also really critical for our students to learn. So we're focusing on those high leverage standards. I just finished a lesson study at Roosevelt today, and that was our focus on central idea and theme from literary and informational text. So we are looking at scores and how they're scoring, and also what are high leverage, what can scholars not leave without. knowing in each grade level.
Okay. And then, although we did have growth, and particularly in the ELA with African-American students, but historically, in some instances, especially in elementary school, they score just a little above ELA students. And ELA students tend to do as well as African-American students who are, who are English speakers, so to speak. I've been reading in a body of research out there that tends to believe that the same strategies used for ELA students could help African-American students do better in English. Has there been any thought given to that in terms of helping to improve African-American students in the, ELA area by using some of the same strategies that are being utilized for our English learners?
Yes, so strategies that are good for English learners or English learner students are good for all. So when we're looking at particularly our lesson studies or our data dives, we are looking for instructional strategies that work for everybody, right? So when we look at a roster of scholars, we look at how they scored in particular, and then we identify which scholars are not performing or underperforming, and that's when we provide different scaffolds, questioning strategies. So we are looking at how individual students scored on assessments in order for us to determine, do we need to call on them more? Do they need differentiated instruction? Do they need scaffolds during questioning routines? So we are looking at that, not necessarily just for African-American student groups, but for all students, because we're looking at data to help us make those instructional decisions.
Right, because I see that we've made some, really good strides in our ESL, students. And like I said, the research I've been reading says, believe that those same strategies could benefit African-American students.
Absolutely.
Because the thing is, we're trying to prevent that school-to-prison pipeline, by the third grade, how do we make sure they're at that level at that period of time in their educational development to prevent that? So I just wanted to know if some of those same strategies can be deployed to be able to assist, African-American students to do better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Trustee Maestas?
Whew, thank you for that. This report is heavy. And I've got kind of a lot of notes, so I'll try not to go too much here. As many people probably know, I'm a secondary math instructional coach. So a lot of this speaks to me, especially in the work that we do with teachers every day in the classroom. Not in this district, of course, not in this district, but I don't coach in this district, just to make sure everybody knows that. So I have a couple of comments and then I have a question or two. I guess I'll start with questions. Can you explain, just for clarity, how a graduation rate is calculated?
So I would not be the best person to answer that question.
So let's see how well I can do.
It's tricky, I know.
It's a little tricky just because it depends on what we call a four-year cohort group. So when a student enters a certain grade, they're put into that cohort group, and then they are tracked. And at the end of when that cohort should graduate, they're considered a graduate or not. Now, some students, if they graduate outside of that cohort, let's say we offer them a fifth year, they don't retroactively go back and raise the graduation rate. That is a static rate. And then those other kids, that's where the dropout rate comes into play. So a fifth year who graduates would be counted positively against the dropout rate, but they would not go back and change the graduation rate. There's a little bit of convoluted there, but does that make sense?
Yeah, I just wanted, for clarity, that this percentage is a 9th to 12th grade percentage. It's not like, oh, these are the 12th graders that graduated from the 12th grade class.
Yeah, so it's 8th going into 9th.
Right, and
That's
then
the
that's the
cohort
cohort.
that travels for 4 years.
And we watch these for
Correct.
4 years. So this is the percentage of 4 years ago kids that are now, that graduated this.
That
last year.
recently graduated.
Recently graduated.
Recently
I guess it's 5
graduated, and
years
they
ago.
met all of their graduation requirements to do
Right.
that, yes. So
Yeah.
it takes more than, I mean, we can't predetermine in the, 8th to 9th grade year that, hey, you're gonna graduate or not. It is a 4-year worth of work, but yes, as a group, they stay together.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify that, because these numbers are very high for graduation rates. And that means that our freshmen are making it to their senior year.
Correct.
And that's good news. Like, we wanna make sure that we acknowledge that.
Trustee Meneses, you
Yes.
mind me asking a follow-up question to that?
Sure, go ahead.
So that means that I'm probably statistically is not a lot of students, but students that came in 11th or 10th, 11th, or even the last year of their senior year into our district, those are not counted under that cohort?
No.
Okay, do they fall into any kind of category?
So it would depend on, and again, if I say this wrong, somebody correct me. But it would depend on if they came in from, let's say they transferred from series, and they came into ours at the 11th grade year, they would be in the appropriate cohort with the rest of their 11th grade peers.
Got it. So they are being,
They're being counted.
They would be counted.
okay, because the way
Yeah.
you're saying is we're counting anyone that, only those that came in 9th grade and finished 12th.
They're
Our
put
system.
into the appropriate cohort when they're enrolled,
Got it.
right? Brad?
I would just maybe clarify, when that cohort starts the first day their freshman year, if a member of that cohort did not graduate or dropped out, but has not enrolled somewhere else, that
Yes.
counts against our dropout and our graduation rate. If a student leaves one of our schools and enrolls at another school, then they transfer over to that cohort and vice versa. So your example of an 11th grader coming into our district, their 11th grade year, they become a part of that cohort. But
So
if
they
they
will be
were to
counted,
not
yeah.
graduate, not meet requirements, or drop out, quit attending, they would count against our cohort.
Got it, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I visited a district that started with like 700 students in their 9th grade, and in their 12th grade, they had like 300. Because students were dropping out of the school. Like that's how severe in some places it is. And that was not Stockton, but it was in California though. A couple of other highlights that I wanted to highlight. The AP results for the DLA, for the Dual Language Academy. These are 8th graders. You have 42% pass. So I looked it up. I was on my phone. When I'm on my phone, I'm like looking up stuff on Google, like as the presentation goes. The national pass rate for this test was 80%. And that's nationally. That means those are mostly 10th, 11th, and 12th graders that are passing this test. And we're at 42% with 8th graders. And the goal's 100. That is pretty amazing. So if you get over 80, we are killing it in that Dual Language Academy. So good work to all the people that are working in that and the goals that they have, because that's really, really amazing if you look at compares to nationally. So I thought that was a great highlight. Now if I can, not so much highlights. So the percentages that I see, I mean, I realize that we had some tough years. One thing that's striking to me, and this is clear California, this is clear nationally, students really, really suffered in mathematics primarily throughout the pandemic. You see the change in ELA was a what was that? It's a 5.5% drop in ELA. And it wasn't that was in high school, and in high school we have a 7.5% drop in mathematics. That's a bigger drop. And across the country we saw that students really hurt in mathematics especially. Students need to be in front of teachers, working with teachers in mathematics. There's just no better way to get them to get them
Absolutely.
in math, to teach them math. But here was the thing that really was striking to me. We have percentages of 48.3 and 42.8 in ELA, which, I mean, that's almost 50%, like, that's almost 50%. Meet or exceed standards. But we had under 15% in math at the junior high, and 23 to 15%, which is 25% less than ELA in mathematics in the high school. I mean, I wish we had started those numbers at around 40 and 30, like 34. We need to get that up to like 40, 50. Like, if we're around 50%, then, you know, at least we have almost half of our students meet, but we're not even there before like last year. I don't know what our numbers were pre-pandemic. I don't have those. But we've been spinning our wheels so long in math that we need the coaching. We need all those supports. Because whatever's happening, this is an opportunity for us, right?
Right.
This is an opportunity for us to see what we're doing and build. Like, it's not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. We see where we're at. We're ready to go. And I think there's motivation and positivity for us to move forward in terms of mathematics. So I await for what's going on. And here's the most positive thing I saw in this was the Algebra 1 co-teaching. Students are getting grade level mathematics. Grade level, not a year behind, grade level, and are not only doing well, but outperforming the rest of the algebra students. That's some pretty good evidence. So I am very, very pleased that our students are getting what looks to be some successful, a successful program, and that we're meeting the needs of those students. How do we make that work for more students? That's what I'm looking towards. So I think that's more of a rhetorical question, but if you have an answer to that rhetorical question, I'll take the answer.
So we are very encouraged by that data, and it is a function of the teachers. If you've ever been in the classroom, working with a partner takes a lot of work. They work really well together. We've sent some training through the county specifically on team teaching. We were the only school there that had 2 credentialed teachers. Everyone else in the team teaching is doing maybe a math credentialed teacher and let's say a resource teacher or someone else, not a math credentialed. So it is a unique system, and we are hoping that we can replicate that at other places. We are very encouraged by this.
Okay.
Quarter 1.
What's that?
Quarter 1.
Quarter 1. Hey, that's, there was a study done that the number of Fs that students get their 9th grade year can correlates to whether or not they stay in high school and graduate. More Fs, more likely they are to drop out. And so if we can do the things that we need to do to get these kids moving in their 9th grade year, we can move them on to graduation and give them opportunities. So thank you so much for this report. I get really passionate with these things because it's my world. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice President Brown? Oh, do we have him? No, he has.
No, it's because I wasn't sure if I was answering the math question. No.
So I want to thank you for this presentation. I know the information is not what any of us want to hear, and it shows a lot of opportunity, but I really appreciate the fact that we are digging into the data and looking where our greatest need is. And, that's been brought out not only by the report, but by members of the public. And we, as a board, are looking carefully at this as well. And I'm looking for some trends that show some hope. And I want to point out something that I also pointed out with the elementary groups, and that was the progress that we were seeing, primarily from our English learners and those who have been reclassified. And one of the things that spoke loudest to me in this report was the fact that in 7th and 8th grade, those two groups made progress when no one else did in both English language arts and mathematics. And so I commend those that are working with these two subgroups and want to just encourage you to continue and not give up hope, because we did see progress when nobody else did. And so that just gives me so much hope, and realizing that the effort that is being spent on teaching English and allowing students to learn in English is supporting them in learning everything that they do. And so continue that effort. It's baby steps, but it's progress, and I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Trustee Marks?
Thank you. Yes, some things have already been said that I was really going to focus on too, was just the fact that we're acknowledging where we are, which we could have ignored the CASP test, as many districts did, but we're not. And I think that's because we really want to know where our students are and how we're making progress for the next year. And then we're going to be, I know I'm looking forward to next year too, because after this full year of extra minutes for our high school students, we're going to even make more progress, I think, next year. But I was encouraged by the AP results, as many of us were, and the graduation rate and the dropout rate. The dropout rate's only 2%, which I remember when it was double digits. And I remember when the graduation rate was in the 70s. So just to look at where we are today is encouraging to me, and knowing that our students are staying in school. We are becoming the destination district. They're coming to us. They're staying with us. They're graduating with us. And that's really gives me hope too, that even though these numbers are really painful to look at and to acknowledge, if we don't acknowledge them, we can't make the progress, and we can't make the steps that we want to make and the changes that we want to make. So I think it's good that we did it. Even though COVID hit us hard, it hit everybody hard, but we're talking about it. I don't know how many districts are. We'll find out when we meet with them. But thank you for this report, and thank you for bringing it to us, and for all the data tonight. That's really helpful, and all the questions and comments that have been made by my fellow trustees. I appreciate that too. So thank you for that, because it helps us know where we need to get to work.
Can I add real quickly, just another calculation that I had that I forgot to mention, with the more instructional minutes in 912. So those are primarily an hour, I'd say about an hour per course, like per class. The more instructional minutes comes out to about 90 days of more instruction. It's almost 3 months that students are going to now have to be able to build on their ability. Like, how do we accelerate learning? Well, we just added 90 more days to their learning. So I'm excited to see that as well. I'm excited to see how much more learning that students can get out of that. Thank you.
That's
Sorry.
a great calculation. We should all remember that.
Student Rep Patel?
I just want to thank you for this very informative presentation. I think as a student, it looks very promising just to see where my peers are at. About the graduation rate results, maybe you might not have the answers, but somebody else might. So the graduation rates being this high, were the requirements to graduate, were they the same as they were for pre-pandemic years last year, or were they the same for COVID?
So the 2 years that we have here comparable, the state did make some allowances for graduation based on state minimum requirements.
So what was the difference in GPA or passing classes, like the requirements to pass classes, DNF rates, from pre-pandemic to the graduation rates, or the requirements for the past 2 years?
I don't have that data, but we can look into that and get that for you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. I did have a question in terms of the AP results for Dual Language Academy. I don't know. So I mean, we're at 42%, right? So that means we definitely have room to grow. But like as mentioned before, for eighth graders, I mean that's amazing, right? For me, the question is, where do they go from there? I know that they have the literature, AP literature, but we're talking about they're in eighth grade. They already took AP, the AP Spanish, and they're in poised to take AP Spanish literature in ninth grade, hopefully in ninth grade or 10th grade. When talking about their graduation requirements for foreign language, a lot of students in the past, I mean, they're in ninth grade, they start in Spanish 1, Spanish 2, they build their way up, and this is the pinnacle, right? The APs are the pinnacle to their 4 years of Spanish classes. Where do they go from there?
So after AP Spanish literature or after AP Spanish language?
Spanish literature, because
That's the work we still have to do. So we started the conversations last year with the MJC. We were working on a class. They offered Spanish 109. Our students don't need Spanish 109 if they leave with AP Spanish language and literature. So we're still in the works of what should be the class for these students. They are honestly achieving at high levels, so it should be a class with high level for them. So that is still in the works.
Okay,
But it would be dual enrollment is what we're looking into.
Yeah, because I mean, for me, it's like either we're motivating them and challenging them with college level classes, or we're allowing and creating space for them to be trilinguals, right? French, German, Chinese. It's like we can go either way because if we're getting this success in Spanish, and we're just putting them back in classes that they can do in their sleeps, that we're gonna either not we're doing a disservice to them, right? That we're not challenging them a little bit more, right? So, but I'm glad that there's conversations already about that. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And any other questions or comments from our board members? Seeing none, thank you so much for the report. This is only a report, so we'll be moving on to our next item on the agenda. And that is B5, Report on Graduation Intervention Teams, GRIT, and this is Dr. Contreras.
Good evening, Board President Lopez, Board of Trustees, Dr. Noguchi, and Cabinet. My name's Heather Contreras, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of School Leadership. And this evening, I'm doing a report on our graduation rate intervention teams, also lovingly called our GRIT. So the purpose of the presentation is to give a report on our GRIT. And earlier this evening, I heard Trustee Marks talk about all the acronyms that we have in education, and we really love this one. It stands for Graduation Rate Intervention Team, and I'll explain more about that. But we also love it because it's GRIT, it's a word, and it requires perseverance. And in order to get our students across the finish line of graduation, we need perseverance from all the shareholders involved in that endeavor. So we like our acronym a lot. We'll be looking at what the purpose of GRIT was and how it was conceived. We'll look at the GRIT process itself. We do use a data protocol in GRIT, so I'll be reviewing the data protocol that we use in our GRIT meetings, and we'll look at the expected outcomes that we expect from our GRIT process, and then what our next steps are. And this is in alignment with District Goal 1, which is increase academic achievement and ensure equitable access to enable all students to obtain college and career readiness. So the initial purpose of GRIT and how it was created was really a district level team looking at data and then looking at the data and saying, well, what are our next step actions? What do we do around this data, especially graduation rate and dropout data? And so at the district level, we were forming hypotheses, actions that we might take. And then at one point, we kind of had a pause and said, wait a minute. Why are we, who are a little bit farther away from the students in the classroom, looking at what we might do? Maybe instead we need to go out to the sites, look at data with sites, hear what their ideas are, and then how do we as a district office level leverage support directly to the sites to help with their data. So we got really excited about that idea, and we knew that we also needed to look at data and that we needed a district protocol for how we talk about data. So as GRIT was born or conceived, we had really two main ideas that we wanted to address. One was, how do we engage with the data with our schools and have a data protocol that becomes a norm for us? And then how do we look specifically at graduation and dropout rates and examine high leverage actions that were based on what the site sees as a need to impact the change for our students? So the GRIT, like I said, stands for Graduation Rate Intervention Team. It's an integrated, interdepartmental, and school-centered process. So it involves district-level personnel from all of the departments in Modesto City Schools and also the school itself that we focus on. We focus on K-12 data because graduation rate is not about the summation of what happens in 12th grade. It is the summation of what happens beginning in our pre-K system and going forward. So we look at all the data. And then we focus on how do we take hypotheses, ideas of why we think what is happening, and then put them into action. And sometimes the actions are maybe not the best actions, but we also study those as well, and it allows us to refine and innovate the processes and the actions that we look at. We appreciate GRIT because we feel that it makes us better as a district, especially at the district level in terms of support and also in partnership with our schools and our site administration, because it gives us the time and space to really look at data, to examine it, to have some thoughts around it, and then to identify the next steps, but the next steps as a team, not just the school or the teacher or the students, but all of us together as shareholders. So GRIT began in October of 2021, and that's typically when we get our graduation and data and our dropout data. And so in that fall October meeting, we were looking at the data, and that's when we kind of said, wait a minute, we probably need to go out to sites and support them back at the site where all the action happens. It was formed in response to better support students in graduating from high school and to really look at our students not as a data point, but as a student who might need help, extra supports, and how do we leverage all of our best practices to help our students. Originally, GRIT in the fall was developed by a core team, and it represented our school leadership department, our student support services, our educational technology services, and then CIPD. And it was just people who believed in what can we do to maybe really make a difference and support sites. GRIT to this day has evolved and it continues to evolve. No process is perfect, but what we do keep doing is after action reviews so that we continue to refine our processes to get better for students. So in 21-22, following looking at the actions we took as a GRIT team at all of the high school sites, we did notice improved outcomes happening for students around DNF rate, graduation rate, and dropout rate. And our first two GRIT meetings, when we went out to school sites, was a team of district office people. We went individually out to each of our 912 sites. We met with the 912 site administrators individually. So we went to Davis with just Davis, Downey with just Downey, and all the 7 sites, including Elliott. And we started noticing that the data, some of the actions were getting better, that we were getting better as a team because we were having time to say, wow, maybe there's some things that we need to change about the systems and processes at the district level to better support sites. And after those first 2 GRITs, which happen quarterly when grades come out, the thought was, maybe we're onto something and we should expand this. And so in the second quarter of 21-22, we expanded to the junior highs. And the process was met with such success that then we thought, maybe next year we need to look at how we do this with all of our schools. So in this year, we have expanded out now to all of our elementary schools, our junior highs, and our high schools. We did notice another thing about grit that we have changed, and that was that great ideas were coming from school sites, and we thought that school sites might want to hear from each other. So we have partnered high schools together, so they engage in their grit together, and we have also partnered our elementary and junior highs together, and that this year has proven very successful. We even, following each grit meeting, which happens 4 times a year, we post promising practices so that sites can learn from each other and have a receptacle of ideas that they might want to engage in at their site. So the grit relies on a data protocol, which I mentioned earlier. We knew that when we looked at data, we probably needed a universal way in Modesto City Schools to talk about data, to examine the data, and to make actions from the data. So the original group of us who started GRIT said, well, let's go and see what we can do in terms of a data protocol. So we went to Harvard. Woohoo! It's actually online, but it was Harvard's business school. Yeah, we were really proud. We have certificates. We put them in our office, and we think, oh, maybe people think we have Harvard degrees, but we do. So we engaged in this online school through Harvard, and it's their data-wise process through their business school about how to look at data, specifically school data. And so how I like to describe the way we engage in that process is it's really a no shame, no blame way to look at data. We're not blaming schools, we're not blaming teachers, and we're not blaming students. The data is what it is, but how do we look at it, analyze it, and address it? And so through the GRIT process, having that thoughtful time to really examine the data, ask questions, most importantly, form hypotheses, and then stem further research helps us to come to our next step actions. So this is an example of our data protocol. So now you will all have a way to look at data too if you choose to engage in this, and you don't even have to go to Harvard's online school to do it. So we start, and this is what the data-wise process teaches us. We start with lots of data. In education, we have tons of data. We have attendance data, discipline data, grade data, benchmark data, CASP data. There's a lot of different data points that we look at and monitor to inform us, and sometimes that could be a little bit overwhelming. So we start in the data-wise process looking at piles and piles of data, and then we narrow it a little bit to an area of focus. This year I've talked about how we continue to evolve as a GRIT team, and so just like Trustee Maestas mentioned in comments just a little bit ago, 9th grade data is a really important part because it is indicative of what happens for students down the road. And so this year we have narrowed it down into 9th grade ELA and math, and that came out of just our own research as well. Then from the focus area, we start looking at what's the learning-centered problem, the problem that's closest to what's happening in the classroom and how can we address that. And then we come up with a problem of practice, an action plan, and after the action plan happens, which is usually between a GRIT meeting and then the next follow-up GRIT meeting, we have time for reflection. What worked? What can we continue to innovate and get even better at, or maybe what didn't work and what do we need to revise our thinking on? So this is just an example of the data sheet we use when we have our GRITs. This sheet takes us through the next step of the data, which is how you narrow that piles and piles of data into a focus. And we do that through what we call the I likes and I wonders. Or I notices. So we'll put a data point up thanks to our mod dashboard. That's been really helpful for us. We have easy access to data. And we just go through with the team saying, what do you notice about the data? What are some thoughts you're having about the data? What do you like? What do you maybe wonder about? And from there, you kind of exhaust all the I notices, and then it gets into the I wonders. And the I wonders lead us into the action plans. All of the teams complete that sheet that you see up there with the I notices, I wonders, and the next step action plans, and we record them so that when we come back in the next GRIT, we can talk about what worked and what didn't. So our expected outcomes from GRIT are to improve our graduation, dropout, and DNF rates for all students. Because we know as a K-12 system, pre-K-12 system, that the end game is to get our students to graduation. And we know that DNF rates are a barrier for students, particularly in junior high and high school. We also want to improve all of our elementary indicators, particularly in math and ELA, because we know those early indicators in elementary also are future predictors of DNF grades in junior high and high school. And then most importantly, we want to model the cycle of continuous improvement. What are short-term actions that we can take with accountability that will later lead into long-term results? So our next steps are to continue refining the GRIT process. It is not a static process, it's dynamic, and we continue to refine and change. After every GRIT meeting, we have an after-action review where we talk about what worked, what didn't work, how do we get better at supporting sites. And then we will continue to monitor the data and look at our next step actions and identify and expand best practices. We've had a lot of actions come to fruition that have helped, and you could see that in our grad and dropout data that has shown improvement. And those actions that we're taking, we want to continue to innovate on and get better at. And then we're thinking that this could be a good way to include our site leadership teams in how we look at data as well. And so down the road, we're looking at maybe including our teacher leaders in the GRIT process as well. And with that, are there any questions?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Contreras. I'll take it out to the public first, see if there's any comments on this.
Thank
Welcome
you,
back,
Dr.
Debbie.
Contreras. I miss working with you over at the school sites. I do have some questions. My first question is, how long has this GRIT been in existence? That's my first question. And my next one is, district to site collecting data. Boy, when we were getting to federal courts, we could have used something like this, Heather. Thank you. Data for us was like pulling teeth and nails back then. But what is promising that I can say, Debbie Martinez, is in 2015-17, when we were collecting data, I stood before this governing board. I think, Chad, you were still here, and Cindy, you were here. The rest of you were not here. And I was screaming that the district was operating micromanaged from afar. Nothing was getting done because the district was micromanaging from afar, and I was complaining to the governing board. It just almost seems like all this chatter that we're now doing to improve is after the fact when we came into federal courts after May of 2018. So I really appreciate that the district is now moving. It's like watching wet paint dry in Alaska, but it's moving, it's drying, it's cleaning up. But it's only sad that it took this long for it to happen. And I hear a lot of, whoa, we're gonna do this and we promise this. Our children only have 4 years once they enter into high school. We don't have time for baby steps. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other person from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for any questions or comments. And I have Trustee Irvin.
Yes, I think this is a great initiative. I can remember years ago when I was with the district, there was some talks about something similar, but our technology back then was still in the dark ages. Now with the addition of Mr. Selkin, we have moved our technology into the 21st century. So with that being said, now how do we, you know, lack of a better term, flag students that are, because once they get that F, they are now behind, you know, not on track to graduate, basically. They hit, and like Trustee Maestas said, you know, ninth grade, you know, I can identify ninth grade had an F in English. And Mr. Acquiano, it was based on behavior. I had a D, and then teacher gave me, you know, because of my behavior, dropped my grade to an F. So, you know, and that's just the way it was. Like you say, you should never be graded on, you know, but had I been doing my homework, I would have had higher than the D in the first place. So, but my grade was dropped to an F. And so, which puts me on track to possibly drop out. But my mother wasn't having it. So with that being said, is there some way, is there a siren in when a student gets a F, the siren goes off somewhere, you know, so we know, all right, we gotta get grit going for the student. You know, how is that being flagged and tagged so no student falls through the cracks?
Yeah, that's exactly our goal, actually, is no student falling through the cracks. So we have some wonderful tools, like you mentioned, from our IETS department that does help us. We have the MOD dashboard that allows us to drill down from looking at grade level data all the way into the student. Who are the students earning the grades and Fs, or the Ds and Fs. And even in elementary, we are graded 1, 2, 3, 4. So we look at that as well. There's also an early warning system built into our Performance Matters that does flag students who are at risk. And that's another part of the dashboard that we look at, particularly our counselors at the high school level. But when we are looking and holding the GRIT meetings, we look at who are the students earning Ds and Fs and how are we helping them? What supports and interventions are they getting? And if they aren't, then that's the time when we're looking at, okay, let's make some next step actions.
Okay. When you say early warning, when does that early warning kick off? Is it at the first progress report or prior? Because the earlier the better. So when does that kick in for that student?
Right now, our early warning system is tied to test scores. So if there's a benchmark assessment that students didn't do well on, then that will kick in through our Performance Matters. For the MOD, we look at our P1, our Progress Report 1, and our goal has been and that's how we've shifted it this year. In the past, when we first started GRIT, we were looking at our students who are at risk of dropping out in 12th grade. What do we do to get them to the finish line now? We're trying to reverse that trend so that we're looking at 9th graders now in P1 and saying, oh no, this has started. What are we doing immediately to get those grades back up and get them on track? So, and it's gonna take a little time to get good at that piece.
Is it possible to go even earlier? Because if they leave 8th grade with some challenges in those subject areas, that pre-9th grade, could some intervention possibly happen?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of our junior high grits. So in our junior high grits, we're also looking at students in the exact same manner, early warning system there and putting supports in place for them too. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'm really looking forward to how grit, as a military, we use grit all the time, see how much grit you had, true grit. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. Trustee West.
Perfect segue, because I'm going to follow on with what Trustee Irvin just said. I'm so glad that you have something in future steps where you're looking at putting this into place in our elementary schools. I know, just having worked even in our middle schools, kids have given up by 6th grade. And so if we let them fail again and again and again when they're young, by the time they reach even 6th grade, a lot of them have given up. And so I'm so happy to hear that you're going to start this program. I think we should start it the first year kids are in school. Let's teach them how to help them be successful so that they don't feel like they want to give up when they get a little bit older. So I'm really glad to hear that you're starting it early. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice President Brown.
Yes, Dr. Contreras, thank you for this report. And I was impressed as you talked about taking it back to the school site rather than all be district down. And as you were saying that, I was wondering, where's the student voice in GRIT?
That's perfect that you asked that.
And what I'm thinking, and I'm guessing that we have wavelengths connecting at this point, but those students who are at risk, they have a voice that needs to be heard. We need to have them involved in helping them find their way back, because it's their way, not ours. And so I would really encourage us as much as possible to connect with those students who are at risk of failing and having them help us figure out what they need, because they know better than anybody else.
Yes, you are definitely 100% right. And actually, we talked about some of the next step actions that come from GRIT, and the schools design what those next step actions are for them. And 3 of our schools have actually designed next step actions, and they've now put them into place and actually done them of empathy interviews. So they have reached out to those students to ask them specific questions about how school is landing on them and what we can do better. It reminds me of what our student rep talked about. It's about us, but not without us. And so those schools are really taking the lead in hearing what the students say. And we've even had teachers say, you know, I didn't know that this was happening for them. I'm going to change this practice. So that's a powerful part of some of the actions that have come out of GRIT. So.
So I know from my own experience that when I'm struggling and I'm given a chance to be a part of the solution instead of always being the problem, I work harder.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that can happen with our students.
We're looking at how we really do bring in that student voice and student choice to help us all being better for students.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Marks?
Yes, thank you. So this kind of goes along with your question, is do we have any, are you planning on doing any meetings between counselors and parents and the student? So let's say a student is struggling in certain classes. Is that something that we're looking at? Because I know that's,
yes.
I always thought we should take more advantage of what the resources are that our counselors have also.
Yes, actually, this year we've expanded, the last 2 years, we have added counselors into our schools, and they've been holding meetings that we call SIT meetings, which are exactly that. Let's bring the students in who might be struggling and hear from them and include their parents on that, and how do we support them and have, you know, with ideas that they might have that will help them to be more successful. So those meetings have been happening under Mr. Herp's department, and it's very promising practices, for sure.
That's awesome. And then, okay, and then my second one is, are we working with our feeder districts? Because we were talking about our 4 junior highs, but then we have 7 feeder districts that have students coming into our schools. And on back to school night, I had some parents talk to me about how we had a much greater rigor for their students than they were used to in some areas. And so just trying to help them catch up or get past where they were.
I'll jump in and answer that question. For the last few years, we've actually had a non-MCS feeder district articulation committee. We meet 3 to 4 times a year. We discuss how best to help support students transitioning from 8th grade into 9th grade in Modesto City Schools. That also includes data sharing agreements. We're getting data much earlier in the year with much more clarity around what those expectations, what our hopes are for data to help us identify students that are in need or at risk or at promise. So that work is happening on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, I think we have one coming up next week, as a matter of fact. So.
All right. I thought we were meeting with them, but I wasn't sure how much or how often. So that's really helpful. So thank you.
Nice collaboration.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from Student Rep Patel?
So I want to thank you for this presentation, because I think this kind of goes along with my question with the graduation rates in the previous presentation. So you talked about D and F rates and working alongside school sites. Can you explain more specifically if you work with the teachers to help remediate the D and F rates for students, and how?
So each site designs their own actions that they're going to take, and some of those actions do involve specific work with teachers. We have our equity grading practices committees that teachers are involved in, and so are our site administrators. We're also working with another nonprofit organization called California Ed Partners that does work with teacher teams to look at DNF rate, how that's impacting students, and to make sure that we're grading students on what we're expecting them to master, rather than other types of practices that could influence grading.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I was just concerned with, if we continue with the lower grading requirements or the lower requirements for graduation for students, and like with COVID, then I just wonder if this really helps students in the long run with their success outside of high school if they're being graduated with these lower requirements and being let out into the real world, if it'll hinder them or help them succeed. Okay.
Same concerns.
Thank you very much. And then, so is there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we thank you, Dr. Contreras. This is a report only, so we'll be moving on to our next item, which is B6, which is review of recommended change to co-curricular and extracurricular eligibility policy, and this is Mr. Godot.
Thank you, Mr. Rich. Much appreciated. Well, good evening, President Lopez and Board. This evening, I am presenting to you a review of recommended changes to our co- and extracurricular eligibility policy. The purpose of the presentation this evening is to review the rationale for the changes that we made, or that the board temporarily made in December of last school year. I'll provide an overview of what is the difference between co- and extracurricular activity. We'll review specifically what those temporary changes were. Then we'll look at some data. Speaking of grit and data dives and data protocols, we'll take a look at the data that we have collected on students that have participated in 9-12 athletic probationary period for eligibility. Then we'll review some recommended changes, and then of course our next steps. So district goal alignment, this aligns with our academic achievement and equitable access goal number 1. And really our probation language here was really grounded in how do we ensure students have access to enrichment opportunities at all schools, and how that connects back to the closer students are connected to school, typically the better that they do. So the rationale for the changes that we brought to the board last November was to look at expanding opportunities for 7-12. Remember setting the stage that we were on our way out of COVID, and we had some significant eligibility issues related to grades and getting kids back out into school activities. It was to engage more students in co- and extracurricular activities, with the idea that students benefit from additional supports and supervision by those that they work with for those co- and extracurricular activities, further their educational and social development, and enhance students' feelings of connectedness with schools. So what is the difference, you might ask, between co- and extracurricular activity? An extracurricular activity is an activity that's not associated with the class. The student doesn't receive a grade. So this might be any number of different clubs or activities on campuses that they don't get a grade for. Co-curricular activities are related to a class, and students earn an academic grade for that. So an example would be our athletic programs. Those are co-curricular. Students receive an academic grade for participation in those activities, as they do for marching band outside of the school day. So the temporary changes made or approved by the board December 13th of 2021 went into effect in our information handbook and conduct code for students. Those changes were temporary. The board asked that they only be in effect for 1 year. So we started in January of 2022, and the board asked that we bring it back before the second semester of this school year. So here we are, it's November, and we're getting ready to conclude our first semester of academics. Yeah, and I just said, board requested it be returned for consideration. So the temporary changes in the academic appeal language is that a student with a 1.5 grade point average or above, with having no more than 2 Fs, are eligible to appeal, which basically means a student can continue to participate in that activity while they have the 1.5 or more than 1 F, which would typically exclude a student from participation. The student is allowed to stay with the team in that activity and practice and play in games. That is a significant change from the prior language, both in the GPA, which was a 1.8 GPA or above for that academic appeal language. And if a student did qualify for that academic probation, the student was only allowed to practice with the team. They were not eligible to be on the sideline with the team or travel with the team. They were only allowed to practice. There were also temporary changes made to the attendance policy that aligns with the probationary period. That temporary attendance language, I'd really just like you to focus on the last part of the sentence where it says, unless caused by COVID-19 protocols, such as having to quarantine due to exposure. If you'll recall, there was a period of time where students had to go home when they were a close contact in a COVID situation, students or staff, any of us actually. And that was impacting the number of student attendance days missed, which we saw in the previous presentation, 220% increase. So we did temporarily amend that language, which says that if students are absent for 15 or more days in a school year, they may be placed on attendance supervision. And if they accumulate 5 unexcused absences, then prior to our temporary language, that student would be considered ineligible. They could have a 3.0, no Fs, but if they had 15 absences and then 5 unexcused, attendance-wise, they would be ineligible. So let's look at some of the data. So first, I'm hoping that I've got a little, no pointer. There we go. So you'll see here, this is by site, and I'll go through student group here in a moment. But this first column here shows a number of students that participated in a probationary period, either in quarter 3, quarter 4, or quarter 1 of this year. So you can see that Bayer had the most students participate in a probationary period, and I would like to point out that a student is only permitted to use a probationary period one time their freshman or sophomore year, and one time their junior and senior year. So you just can't keep continuing the cycle. You get an opportunity your freshman, sophomore year to pull it together, and if you need it, again, your junior, senior year. So the next column here shows the number of students that were on probation due to GPA. So I'll use Bayer as the example. They had 16 students utilize a probationary period in those 3 quarters. 16 of those students were due to a GPA, meaning below a 2.0 or a 1.5 or higher. And then 9 of those students showed growth during the period. So we looked at what was their GPA for eligibility to start that grading period, and then we looked at their GPA at the end of that probationary period. So at Bayer, 56.3% of students showed grade point average growth in a positive direction. More importantly, 8 of those 9 students showed growth that got them above or equal to a 2.0. So the difference between those columns here is 50% of the students, of those 16 students for GPA, showed growth that got them above a 2.0. The following columns, you can see it's showing the number of students that were there for having greater than 1 F. So at Bayer, again, as the example, they had 6 of the 16 students that also had more than 1 F. 3 of the 6 students showed improvement to less than 2 Fs, so they could have had 1 F or they could have had no Fs. And so if we're looking at the totality of all of the data at all of the sites, we can see that 74.7% of students that were on this probationary period showed academic GPA growth, and 70.7% of them actually got their GPA back to a 2.0 or higher. And again, 63% of students that had 2 or more Fs showed improvement in the number of Fs, either 1 or none. Again, taking it to the next level here and looking at our student group data, you can see that our Hispanic and Latino students, we had 45 students utilize a probationary period, of which 79.5% showed growth. 68 of the 79% got to a 2.0 or higher. And again, just about 2/3 of those students also decreased the number of Fs that they had. So looking at the data and the fact that this was a temporary change, the recommended permanent change would be that we make the academic appeal language permanent, meaning the language, the temporary language we have now of a 1.5 or above and no more than 2 Fs are eligible to appeal, meaning for that one grading period, they could practice, they can play, they could be a part of that activity. The student is allowed to stay with that team and practice and play. We recommend that we revert to the prior language on excessive absenteeism because we really don't have the challenges of the COVID-related absences where students were being sent home. And if they are being sent home for COVID-related symptoms for an extended period of time, typically we're going to have some medical documentation, which goes to, students don't get on that attendance probation, so to speak, when they have excused absences, i.e. from a doctor. So the next steps would be to get feedback from the board this evening and bring those recommendations forward to the board November 21st of this year for their review or approval. With that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Godot. I'm gonna take it out to the public first. Any questions or comments from public? Aaron?
Yeah, I'm Aaron Anguiano again. And I agree with this suggested change. My son has been playing baseball all his life, well, after 6 years of age. And then he's doing, preparing for tryouts. And January is gonna be like after school all the way to, I don't know, 5 or 8 o'clock. And so it's really hard to have good grades and play. And so I think it's a good idea, really. And I think if the teachers just say, okay, I'm gonna relax my rules to allow homework to be turning a week late, then they have the weekend to work on. That's when the kids have time. You know, I can put them all day to do homework, Saturday and Sunday, but during the school days, it's really hard. So I think it's either or, but I think this way is gonna work. With the teachers, you're gonna have to do a lot more work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aaron. I'll bring it back to the board. I have trustee Maestas and trustee Irvin. I'll start off with trustee Maestas.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. And we'll look at a recommendation here. First, homework should never be a cause for anybody to miss any type of extracurricular or co-curricular stuff, right? Kids should be able to play sports. They should be able to play instruments, band, and spend time with family. That's just my personal side note. And not be penalized in a grade for that. In terms of the changes, I have a question here. In this, the way this is this written exactly like what we want to do? Students who are absent 15 days in one school year, is that's unexcused absences or just absences?
15 days of, this is exactly as it's written in the student information handbook. So at 15 days, a student is monitored, and then if they have unexcused absences, when they get to 5, then they become ineligible. So it's not just any absence. If the student was at 15 and they had a doctor's note that kept them out, that would be excused absences. So that reverting back to the prior language would be as it's reflected here.
I think I would like that to not include COVID-19. I was out with COVID-19 for 8 days from work, and that's more than half. That's more than half of those days, right? And so if that counts against you, we don't want kids at school with COVID, let alone any infectious disease for that matter. But I don't know if that should count against them. It doesn't count against them for other things, right? If they're out for 8 or 5, 6, 7 days with COVID.
I would just clarify that it's unexcused absences.
Oh, that's what I asked. I asked if that was unexcused absences.
It is unexcused absences.
Okay. Yeah, if that 15 days is unexcused absences, then that was my original question. Then I'm okay with that. Those 15 days, if students are absent for 15 days in one school year, those 15 days are unexcused 15 days.
I don't believe it qualifies excused or unexcused. Mr. Herbst, do you have any insights to that? I think it's just 15 days because that's more than 10% of the school year. So pre-COVID, a threshold of 10% is chronic absentee.
Correct, it's 15 days.
So, but to clarify, once a student is on attendance supervision at day 15, it's not excused absences that factor in. It would be if they were missing school but didn't have an excused absence. So a note from a doctor. At 15 days or more, they have to have a note from a medical practitioner to excuse the absence.
Okay, I get it. Then the only other thing I was gonna say was that, you know, I coached basketball and track and baseball and golf, all kinds of things, and I knew students, some of my players that would only come to school because they were on a sports team. Like, that was the only, there was one of my players I remember would miss first period every day. He did not like going to first period. But his first period teacher told me, as a coach, I said, you're going to first period or you're not gonna play. And he came to first period every day after that. So they come to school to play. And so we can see that in the data, that even though the restrictions were a little bit less, it actually helped kids grow more. So I'm all for keeping what we have. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you very much. I have Trustee Irvin.
Yes, I just wanted to point out, good report. I don't know if Trustee Marks and them remember, you know, back when I was with the district, Ricky McGill came with a proposal. It wasn't as detailed and fleshed out as this, but back then, everybody was against it. But seeing the detail and the rationale behind it, I think this is something, you know, we could work with. It can serve as a motivator for some students out there. Does this include, so citizenship grades are no longer included in this scenario?
Citizenship grades do not count for co-curricular eligibility.
Okay, because they used to.
Yes, they did.
Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to make sure that, because I always disagree with that, because that's so subjective, you know, to use citizenship grades to decide whether a student plays, if they get 2 U's or something like that. So yeah, I'm for this. I see that this can be a positive motivator for students, and the data shows it. So good.
Thank you very much. Trustee West.
Thank you. I just had a clarifying question. The students can petition for 1 term to allow them to play, but if they don't bring up their grades, then they're not eligible to play if they don't bring them up after that term. Is that correct?
That is correct. So it's a 1 quarter, we refer to as a probationary period, right? I think in the student code of conduct, it's referred to as the academic appeal, but they are eligible to participate and play for those 9 weeks. And at the end of those 9 weeks, then they are held to the same eligibility standards as all other students. And I mentioned earlier in the presentation that a student may only use this appeal process 1 time. So in 1 quarter of their freshman or sophomore year, and then only 1 time their junior or senior year.
I think that makes sense. You know, I like giving students an opportunity to improve. And from what we just saw, it was a motivating factor for a lot of those students. You know, they did kind of improve their grades after that 1 time. So I am in support of that, as long as we don't just keep it going where they don't have to improve. So I like the fact that they have something to work towards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Student Rep Patel.
Just a quick clarifying question. So if we reverted to the prior excessive absenteeism language, does that not include the probationary period that they have to be able to play on the team for 1 quarter?
That would be correct. Well, if they received 5 unexcused absences after being on attendance supervision, it would make them ineligible regardless of where they're at in the eligibility process. So they could be eligible participating on a team, or they could be on academic appeal or probation. But if they get more than 5 unexcused absences, then they would be ineligible.
And the absences don't count for the temporary one, right? Like the 1.5 GPA or above temporary academic appeal language, the absences don't count in that one.
The language was changed for the attendance supervision policy, so it's all under the same section in the student conduct code, but there's the academic appeal and then there's the student supervision for attendance. So they're kind of separate, but yet in the same language for appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice President Brown?
Yeah, I definitely support this measure. It feels like an opportunity for our students who are struggling to use their voice. And anything we can do to support that. They want to succeed. They want to have a reason to be at school. So I'm supporting it.
Thank you very much. Trustee Marks?
Yes, so I support what you brought forward was to keep the temporary one for the athletic probationary policy and then to go back to the prior one for the attendance. That's what I'm believing was what we were discussing. Okay.
Correct.
And then when we bring this back, could you put it on the page with the handbook when we vote on it? You know, how you line out and say this is, or however, this is what it was, this is what it is, and this is what we're voting on. It's
Absolutely.
just clear for me to see when we vote on it. So I'm believing that you're going to do that. I'm just wanting to see it like that. Like it is for policy. When we look at a policy and we're changing a policy, so it has the lined out information and the new wording or verbiage that we're voting on. Is that okay? Okay, that's all. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, I think this is a great change for keeping this. I've always said, you know, we don't know how we're going to engage what's going to be that engaging factor for our students, right? It could be the arts, it can be sports, it can be an array of things that will re-engage them and get them prepared to be successful in education. So if this helps that, then you know, we welcome it. So you know, we're looking to, when this comes back, but thank you so much for this, Mr. Godot. And then with that, we will be moving on. There's no votes, right, on this one? No. Then we'll be moving on to B7, which is a public notice to approve submission for provisional internship permit to California Commission on Teacher Credentialing. And this is Mr. Henderson.
Yes, good evening, thank you. And it's, as you said, a public notice to approve a provisional internship permit. The district makes every effort to hire candidates who are fully qualified and credentialed. However, in some cases, due to the need for teacher shortages, we do hire individuals who are in the process of completing some of the requirements and working towards securing their preliminary credentials. This can be a function of the need for high demand, low supply, or highly specialized positions. It could be the timing of the vacancies or the need to fill positions mid-year or other factors. COVID also impacted some folks as they were going through programs to complete all their requirements. In this case, we have one employee in the process of completing requirements for his multiple subject credential. The individual was hired as a substitute teacher in January 2021 and then hired on August 2nd as a teacher to fill a vacant position at the start of the school year. And we recommend the board approve this item.
Thank you very much. I'll take it out to the public. Is there any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Any questions or comments on this? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the public notice to approve submission of provisional internship permit to the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing? Moved by Trustee Maestas, seconded by Trustee Irvin. And I'll take roll call. Student Rep Patel? Trustee Irvin?
Aye.
Trustee Maestas?
Aye.
Trustee Marks?
Aye.
Trustee Mejia? Aye. Vice President Brown,
Aye.
Trustee West,
Aye.
President Lopez, aye. Motion carries unanimously. And this takes us to our last item for this evening, which is the approval of resolution number 22-23-11, authorizing assignment of teachers outside of credentialed academic and academic major or minor under the licensing of certificated personnel law for the 2022-2023 school year. Mr. Henderson.
Yes, thank you again. Another credentialing approval. Through this time of resolution, most often we present this resolution for certificated staff who are credentialed in an area other than physical education, and it allows them to coach a period of athletics for which they receive, students receive PE credit. You might see this authorization coming through for that purpose a lot. This current resolution is for a teacher hired in August whose credential area is multiple subject, and the resolution authorizes him to teach social science, which is his assignment at Mark Twain Junior High School. It's been determined that this individual qualifies under the authorization granted through this resolution, and we recommend the board approve this item.
Thank you very much. I'll take it out to the public. Any questions on this or comments? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Any questions or comments from our board members? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to approve the resolution of number 22/23-11, authorizing assignment of teacher outside of credentialed academic major or minor under the licensing for certificated personnel law for the 2022-2023 school year? Moved by Trustee Mejia, seconded by Trustee Marks. All those, I'll take roll call once again. Student Board Rep Patel,
Aye.
Trustee Irvin,
Aye.
Trustee Maestas,
Aye.
Trustee Marks,
Aye.
Trustee Mejia,
Aye.
Trustee West,
Aye.
Vice President Brown,
Aye.
President Lopez, aye. The motion passes unanimously. Is there any items that needs to be placed on future board meeting of education agenda? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting for tonight? Motion by Trustee Mejia, seconded by Trustee Marks. Student Rep Patel, sorry, it's late. Do I vote? Trustee Irvin,
Aye.
Trustee Maestas,
Aye.
Trustee Marks,
Aye.
Trustee Mejia,
Aye.
Trustee West,
Aye.
Vice President Brown,
Aye.
President Lopez, aye. Good evening, everyone. Our next meeting will be November 21st at 6 p.m. Meeting adjourned.